Welcome, friend. I'm Jack, host of the channel, and today we're diving into another episode. Pour yourself a drink and get comfortable, because I've got a powerful story coming your way. If something hits deep, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get into it.
The worst day of my life started out pretty well. I got up at 7 and did my morning workout. After lifting weights, I ran for miles. The fog was thick and I was the only one on the trail. After my run, I cooled down by alternating between jogging and walking for another mile. When I got home and showered, my wife Lisa had my bagel and a glass of apple juice ready for me. I kissed her and gave her a hug while gulping down the juice. She complained about me wrinkling her clothes and messing up her makeup, but she eventually melted into my embrace. She still made my heart race every time I saw her. At 32, she was more beautiful than ever. Her dark blonde hair was now almost light brown and reached down to her waist. She had filled out nicely from the slender girl I took to prom back in high school. She was still a little over 5 feet tall, but proved that dynamite comes in small packages. Lisa was a rising star at her advertising firm and was hitting her stride after the birth of our 2 boys. She had attracted a lot of attention on some high-profile corporate accounts, and they were talking about making her a partner. She was making almost as much as I was, and I was doing quite well. I had just been promoted for the 4th time and was the head of the architectural department at a large firm. I kissed her again, grabbed my briefcase and bagel, and headed out the door. "Have a great day, beautiful," I waved. She blew me a kiss as she started getting the boys ready for school. She went to work an hour after I did, and I had bedtime duty. My other baby was in the garage. I had only owned her for about 6 months, a deep blue Dodge Challenger. I'd been driving Mustangs since I was 16. My dad helped me buy a 1972 Mach 1 that's still parked under the shed. I get it out occasionally and drive it just to hear the roar of the big engine through those Flowmaster pipes. It's not as quick as the new Mustang, but I love hearing the Camaro and Challenger owners brag about their toys. Just 3 days before, one of the engineers was bragging about his new Shelby GT500 with over 650 horsepower, trying to impress Olivia in the next office. I smiled at the thought of my Mustang's 760 horsepower. I had a great day at work and finished the power plant design our team was working on by early afternoon, so I took the rest of the day off. I washed my car. It was a beautiful afternoon, and I could see my reflection in the polish when I put her back in the garage. Lisa texted me, saying she'd be a bit late because she was in a meeting and would be home around 6. At 3, I was in the kitchen baking chocolate chip cookies. I had 2 trays done and a plate set on the counter when I heard the door open and 2 little voices coming through the living room. My boys, Ethan and Liam, were home. They were identical twins and the cutest little bundles of joy. They had their mom's hair, freckles, and big brown eyes, but they had my complexion. Lisa could tan, but I'm naturally olive-skinned, and they got my skin tone. It contrasts with their hair and eyes, making them even more striking. At 12 years old, they were just adorable. They fought like cats, but only with each other. They were sweet as honey with me, and never allowed anyone to say anything bad about the other. Lisa had a hard time dealing with them, though. They loved her deeply, but whenever she corrected one, the other would always take his brother's side, and they could argue as fiercely as their mother. They outdid each other, telling me about their day. School had just started a week ago, and they loved their new teacher, Miss Turner. She was new to the district, and I had yet to meet her, but she certainly made an impression on my boys. I fed them cookies and glasses of milk while listening to them with a big grin on my face. They were my angels and could do no wrong. After they each ate 3 cookies, they went upstairs to do their homework, which was my rule, homework, right after school, so we had the rest of the evening free. I took the last tray of cookies out of the oven and put them on the platter when I heard Liam call me. I started up the stairs, but my phone vibrating distracted me. I took it out and saw a text from an unfamiliar number. "You were one hot babe today. Can't wait until tomorrow afternoon." While I appreciated the compliment, I had no idea who would send me such a text, since I had no plans other than work. I figured someone punched in the wrong number and decided to play along. Thanks, babe, I replied. Remind me again about the time and place. The response came quickly. You using Alex's phone? Make sure you delete this. Can't have Alex getting suspicious too soon. Our place, of course. I froze halfway into the boy's doorway. My name is Alex, and my phone number ends in 9. Lisa's ends in 7, and the boy's end in 7 and 6. Someone made a big mistake. I was numb, unable to move. Ethan looked up at me. Daddy, we need help with these math problems. What's wrong, Daddy? Both boys stood up and stared at me, looking shocked. I shook off the cobwebs. Nothing, boys. Just some bad news, but nothing to worry about. Let me see that math. 5 minutes later, I heard the garage door open. Lisa was home. I heard her walking around, and in a minute she poked her head in. What's for dinner? She asked. Hey, sweethearts, she cooed, and the boys bounced up to hug her, then returned to their homework. Lisa came over and put her arms around my neck from behind, nibbling on my ear. I'm going to grab a quick shower, she said. We finished the math, and I asked the boys if they wanted to go out to Burger World. They were all over it, and by the time they were dressed in shorts and t-shirts, I was waiting in the car. Isn't Mom coming? Ethan asked. She had a long day. Let her rest. We'll turn off our phones and have a boys' night out, okay? They agreed, and we had a great time. I forgot to turn my phone off, and it vibrated a dozen times, but I ignored it, diving back into the games and pizza. We got home at 9, and Lisa was asleep on the sofa with her phone in her hand. I held my finger to my lips, and we tiptoed upstairs. They got in bed, and I went to the spare bedroom, locking the door. I lay awake until midnight when I heard a soft knock. Alex! What are you doing? Lisa whispered. Open the door. Where did you go, and why is the door locked? Why are you in there? I didn't answer, and she knocked several times, calling my name a dozen times before giving up. She obviously didn't want to wake the boys, and I heard her footsteps going down the hall toward our room. Well, what had been our room? I didn't know what it was now. I got up by 7 and took my clothes into the garage. I heard her alarm go off as I was getting into my car. I saw her come into the garage just as the door went down, and I drove to the park. I usually ran at the high school track, but I ran at the park that day. My phone went off a dozen times, but I ignored it. I showered and got dressed at work, borrowing my friend Marcus's car at noon. I felt like I was betraying everything I believed in, getting into that little sedan, but I wanted to blend in. Lisa's car was at the office, and I pulled up across the street, waiting. The windows were tinted, and no one could see me inside. At 3, Lisa came out and got into her Tesla. I followed her at a discreet distance into the suburbs. When she turned into a subdivision, I knew where we were going. My brother Darren lived there. This kind of sucked. Now I knew why the number looked familiar. I never got along well with Darren, and we didn't talk much. The only time I saw him was at family events, and even that was too often for me. I saw him put his hand on Lisa's hip 2 years ago at our parents' anniversary party, and I decked him. We hadn't spoken since, although his wife and Lisa spent a lot of time together. I parked across the street, and she pulled into his driveway. When she got out, she looked upset. She went inside, and I walked around to the back of the house. I had been there hundreds of times. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Darren's wife, Charlotte, was lying by the pool. This was just getting weirder and weirder. She was a stunning woman, sophisticated and elegant. She exuded class. She looked up at me when she heard the back gate close, and a look of sheer panic crossed her face. Alex, she gasped, what are you doing here? I walked up the steps to the deck as Charlotte jumped up and came running toward me. Alex, wait, don't go in there. I need to tell you something. Wait. The screen was shut, but I could hear them talking. Lisa was very agitated, and Darren was trying to calm her down. I'm telling you, something's wrong, she said. He slept in the spare bedroom last night, and he left without saying a word this morning. This was a mistake, Darren. I need more time to get him on board. I love my husband, and I'm not risking my marriage and kids over this. You can talk him into it, he told her. We've seen the way he looks at Charlotte. Don't get cold feet now. We've talked about this a dozen times, and you know you want to do this. Yes, I've loved it, but I don't want to lose everything. If he has sex with Charlotte, he can't say anything, and we'll swap occasionally. You might as well now that you're here. I can tell you want it. Yes, but not that bad. If Alex ever found out about this, it would kill him. I'm not going to do it, Darren. I peeked in and saw them standing in the living room. He pulled her toward him and kissed her. She resisted for a minute, then let him kiss her. I snapped a couple of pictures and a short video. He was sliding down the zipper of her dress, and she was reaching around to stop him. I had seen enough. They jumped apart when they heard the screen door collapse, and I stepped through. Lisa screamed, "No! Oh my God, no! Alex, this isn't what you think. Please, I'm so sorry." I kept walking toward them, and Darren backed away as fast as he could. I walked past them and out the front door. Lisa ran to me and threw her arms around me from behind. "Please, Alex, let's just go home. This isn't what it looks like, I promise. I'll explain when we get home." I left without another word and got into Marcus's car. All three of them came out and tried to chase me down. I drove back to the office and gave the keys back to Marcus. After 30 minutes, my phone started ringing. I ignored it. 5 minutes later, my secretary, Ava, burst in. "Your wife is on line 3, she said. "Tell her I'm not available," I replied. I spent the rest of the afternoon staring at my computer screen. "Your sister-in-law is on the phone," I heard 5 minutes later. "Put her through," I said. "What do you want, Charlotte?" "Alex, we need to talk about this," she said. "Why aren't you at home? You need to talk to Lisa. She can explain everything. Darren and I will be there too. We'll talk about it like rational adults. This is your brother and your wife, Alex. You need to calm down." Why is it that when someone screws with you, they always tell you to calm down? That just pisses me off more. "I don't have a brother," I said. "If Darren is in my house when I get home, I'll tear him apart. If I see you there, I'll throw you out too. Don't ever let me see or hear from you again, Charlotte. Tell Darren that if he sees me, he better start running." I hung up. 20 minutes later, it was my dad. "Alex, what's going on?" he asked. "Your brother, your mother, and Charlotte are here. They say you've been threatening them. Lisa called and she was crying hysterically. What have you done?" "Lisa is screwing Darren, and they were planning to trick me into wife-swapping, Dad. I don't have a brother. If I hear that you've allowed any of them in your house after today, I won't have a father. If Mom lets them in, or either of you ever speak their names to me, I won't have a father or mother. You raised that jerk, and now you get to pick a side. Oh yeah, you won't have a grandchild either." "You can't talk to me like that," he started to bluster, and I hung up. Ava came in and asked me something, but I didn't hear her. "Alex, I asked you a question," she said louder. "Oh, sorry, Ava. What did you say?" "Are you okay?" she asked. Tears started running down my cheeks, and I couldn't stop them. She walked over and put her arm around my shoulders. "Did someone die? I'm so sorry, Alex. Who was it?" "I think it was my marriage and my family," I told her. The whole story spilled out as I buried my face in my hands and wept. 10 years of my life flashed before my eyes. 10 wonderful years with the woman I loved and thought loved me. "Did she sleep with him?" she asked. "I think so," I said. "She was going to do it again today. She thought I was onto them and wanted to call it off." "Why would she do this, Ava? I loved her with every cell in my body. I would have died for her. How could she do this to our boys? What did they ever do to deserve this?" "Alex, go home and talk to her," she said. "Find out the answers to those questions. You'll never rest easy until you do. Get out of here." I hugged her. "Thanks, Ava. You're a good friend. Please don't tell anyone about this." She looked hurt. "Jesus, Alex, how could you say that?" "You know I wouldn't tell anyone." "I apologize," I said, and she hugged me again. "I know you're upset. Just go home and try to work this out." My phone had been going off ever since I got back to the office, and it rang on the way home until I turned it off. When I pulled into the garage, Lisa came running out. She stood beside the door, and I just sat there for a minute, collecting myself. She started beating on the window with her fist. "Alex, just get out and talk to me, please. I'm begging you, just let me talk to you." I opened the door, and Lisa tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. She looked shocked. I had never laid a finger on her in anger, but I wasn't about to let her touch me now. "Don't touch me, Lisa," I told her coldly. "You make me feel like I need a shower." She burst into tears. "Please, Alex, just come inside and let me talk to you. You have until the boys get home," she pleaded. "When they get home, the talking is over, and we pretend that everything is fine. Do you understand? They aren't involved in this, and if you upset them in any way, we're done." "That's not enough time," she wept. Can we talk again after they go to bed? I don't know, I said, hardening my voice. It depends on what you say between now and when I pick them up. You've got an hour and a half. Make the best of it. I will, she promised. Please, can we just sit down? I followed her into the living room, and she sat on the sofa, patting the cushion next to her, inviting me to sit beside her. I ignored it and took a seat in the recliner across from her. That made her cry even harder, covering her face with her hands as her shoulders shook. You're wasting time, I finally said, my tone indifferent. She wiped her face with a towel from the bar and tried to pull herself together. When she started speaking again, her voice was shaky, and she was barely able to talk through her sobs. I'm so sorry, Alex, she began. I made a huge mistake. I never thought you'd find out. I love you so much. Your love stinks like rotting garbage. You better talk about something that makes sense. Don't be like that, she begged, her voice cracking. It sounds cheap and dirty because it is cheap and dirty, I shot back. There's no way to sugarcoat this. You would have done it today if I hadn't caught you. I never intended to have sex with him. It just happened. I'm so sorry, she cried, her sobs growing more intense. I don't know what I was thinking. I was wild before we got married, Alex. You know that. I met Darren before I met you. I slept with him a few times, and even after he married Charlotte, we still got together occasionally, all three of us. I felt my stomach turn, but I didn't say a word. I know you think Charlotte is hot, Alex. I thought the four of us could all be together. I thought you might enjoy it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just admitting to cheating on me with Darren. She was suggesting that I should have gone along with it. This wasn't an apology. She was trying to justify what she'd done, making it seem like I should have been okay with it. You had a sex session set up for this afternoon, I stated flatly. No, I told them I wasn't going to do it. She wept. Yes, because you thought I knew, I snapped. What if I hadn't known? You weren't going to stop. I wasn't going to have sex with him, she cried. It doesn't matter. You did know, and you were going to do it again. How did you know? She asked, her voice weak. What difference does it make? I shouted, the anger building in my chest. You were going to screw him. Do you know what that makes you? Please, Alex, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. It doesn't have to be ugly. It could have been fun. You could have had sex with Charlotte. I felt bile rise in my throat and ran to the bathroom. I barely made it to the toilet before vomiting. After a minute, Lisa was behind me, trying to hand me a washcloth, petting me like a child. I pushed her away, washed my face, and headed back to the living room. She followed me like a shadow. Do you hear what you just said? I asked, turning to face her. It could have been fun? The next thing you're going to say is that it was just sex. Jesus Christ, Lisa, do you know how stupid you've become? That makes me want to slap the hell out of you. Yes, slap me, Alex, she shouted, her voice desperate. I won't say a word. I deserve it. Punish me. Do anything you want. Just forgive me. I stood there, fuming. She was making excuses, pleading for my forgiveness, but every word out of her mouth only made me angrier. Damn you, Lisa. How can you ask me that after what you did? I loved you yesterday morning, last week, and for the last 12 years. That didn't stop you, did it? How the hell do you expect me to trust you after this? How do you expect me to believe anything you say? I don't know, she sobbed. But I'll do anything, Alex. I'll prove it to you. I'll go to counseling. I'll wear a bracelet. I'll quit my job. I'm desperate. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't want to lose the boys over this. Please, just give me a chance to fix this. Her voice cracked again as she mentioned our kids, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Our boys, Noah and Lucas, they didn't deserve this. I had to hold it together for them. My God, the boys, I said, my voice softer. I have to go pick them up. Clean yourself up, Lisa. If you aren't under control by the time I get back, I swear to God, I'll kick you out of this house. Do you understand? Yes, I'll be good. I'll take a bath. I'll be under control, I promise. Can we talk again after they go to bed? She asked, desperation still thick in her voice. You can't promise me anything, Lisa, I replied coldly. Don't make promises to me. You threw away the only promise that mattered, forsaking all others. Do you remember that promise? She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. Yes, I remember, she whispered. I'm so sorry, I forgot. Can we talk later? Yes, we can. I'm going now. Get your head on straight, I told her, grabbing my keys and leaving. I was 10 minutes late picking up the boys from school. When I pulled up, I saw them sitting on a bench in front of the building, and a woman was with them, her arms around their shoulders. As I approached, I recognized her, Miss Carter, their teacher. She was tall, with big, warm brown eyes and a cascade of glossy black curls that framed her face. She smiled when she saw me, her whole face lighting up with that smile. "You're late, Daddy," Noah said, running up to me. "I'm sorry, buddy," I replied, hugging him tightly. "I lost track of time." "This is Miss Anderson," Lucas said, tugging on my hand as I stood up to greet her. "She stayed with us until you came." "I'm Carly Anderson," she said, offering me her hand, that same smile still on her face. Her voice was calm, soft, and kind, like she didn't mind waiting with them at all. "Your boys are wonderful, Alex. I'm lucky to have them in my class." I shook her hand, feeling her long fingers brush against mine. For a moment, I forgot everything else. "Thank you for looking after them, Miss Anderson," I said. "I really appreciate it. I'm Alex." She laughed lightly, those brown eyes twinkling. "Please call me Carly." She paused for a moment, then added, "There's a Starbucks nearby. Why don't we grab a coffee and I can tell you about how the boys are doing in class?" I agreed, and after getting the boys buckled in the car, we followed her to the cafe. We sat down, and as I sipped my triple espresso, Carly smiled, wiping the foam from her own latte. "I have a foam mustache, don't I?" She grinned, and I chuckled, nodding. As the boys devoured their cookies, Carly looked at me, a little more seriously this time. "You seem like you've had a rough day," she said, her tone still gentle but concerned. "Do you want to talk about it?" I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain everything. I wasn't even sure where to start. "It's nothing," I said, shaking my head, but she wasn't fooled. "Alex," she said softly, "sometimes it helps to just let it out." I sighed, looking at her earnest face, wondering how much to reveal. Her eyes, those deep brown eyes, seemed to offer a kind of understanding that I didn't expect. "Are you married?" I asked her suddenly, deflecting. I wasn't ready to spill my mess just yet. Her expression changed, a shadow crossing her face. "I was engaged once," she said, her voice a little quieter. "It didn't work out." She didn't say anything more, and I didn't push her. We sat in silence for a moment before she cleared her throat and smiled again. "Your boys," she said, pointing at them with a nod. "They're amazing, Alex. You're raising them well." "Thanks," I replied, feeling the weight of her words. It was nice to hear that I was doing something right, even if everything else in my life felt like it was falling apart. After we finished our coffees, Carly said goodbye, and I promised the boys we'd see her again soon. I felt a strange pull toward her, something comforting and calm. It was just coffee, but it felt like a little escape from the chaos that was waiting for me back home. I didn't know what to expect when I got back to the house. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, I turned my phone back on. It immediately blew up with notifications, mostly missed calls and texts from Lisa. I ignored them all. When we stepped inside, Lisa was sitting at the kitchen table, looking pale and anxious. The boys rushed over to her, giving her hugs and kisses. She smiled weakly, but her eyes were on me the whole time. "Mom, we had cookies with Miss Anderson," Lucas said excitedly. "She's really nice. Can she come over again sometime?" Lisa managed a small smile, but I could see the tension in her face. "That sounds fun, sweetie," she said softly. "Why don't you two go wash up for dinner, okay?" As they ran off, the silence between us grew heavy. I could feel Lisa's eyes burning into me, but I didn't look at her. Instead, I went to the fridge and pulled out a beer, popping it open and leaning against the counter. "Alex, please," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Can we talk now?" "Talk?" "What's left to say, Lisa?" I replied, not even bothering to mask the bitterness in my voice. "You already said it all earlier." She stood up, her hands shaking slightly. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll do anything, Alex. Please, just tell me what I need to do." "Anything, huh?" I asked, raising an eyebrow as I took a sip of my beer. "You think this is something you can just fix with words? With 'I'm sorry'?" Her lower lip trembled, and she nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't even know if I can ever trust you again," I continued. "How do I know you won't go back to Darren the second I look away? How do I know this isn't just some temporary guilt talking?" Lisa broke down into sobs, collapsing onto the chair. "I'll prove it to you," she cried. "I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling, I'll quit my job, I'll let you have full control of everything. Just please, don't leave me, Alex. I love you. I can't lose you and the boys." I stared at her, my emotions swirling between anger, sadness, and disbelief. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that maybe she could change. But the other part of me, the part that was still raw from betrayal, didn't know if it was possible. "I'll think about it," I finally said, my voice hard. "But right now I need space, and so do the boys. You're going to have to earn back everything, Lisa, and that's not going to be easy." She nodded through her tears, her face pale and broken. "I understand," she whispered. "I'll wait. As long as it takes, Alex, I'll wait." After that painful conversation with Lisa, I walked out of the room, unable to stay there any longer. The boys were still upstairs, and I needed a moment to breathe, to think. Everything was crashing down around me, and I felt like I was suffocating. I stepped outside onto the back deck, the cool evening air doing little to calm my racing thoughts. I sipped my beer slowly, staring at the horizon, but I couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal, the lies, and the mess my life had become. How did I get here? Lisa had been the love of my life, the mother of my children, the woman I thought I would grow old with. But now, every time I looked at her, all I could see was Darren, the man she had thrown it all away for, the man she was planning to be with behind my back. She had been willing to gamble everything. For what? A cheap thrill? I drained the rest of my beer and set the bottle down, feeling an urge to smash it into a million pieces, just like everything else around me seemed to be doing. But I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. The boys needed me to keep it together. I couldn't let them see how broken I was. Then I remembered Carly. That thought surprised me. I hadn't expected her to cross my mind in this moment, but there she was, kind, understanding, and calm. The way she had looked at me today, with concern and empathy, had stirred something in me. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Was it wrong to be thinking about another woman right now? Maybe, but she had made me feel something. Something real, something good, even in the middle of all this chaos, and right now I needed that. The back door creaked open, and I turned to see Noah stepping out, his eyes wide with concern. "Daddy, are you okay?" he asked softly, his small face filled with worry. I forced a smile and knelt down to hug him. "I'm okay, buddy," I said, squeezing him tightly. "Just thinking about a lot of grown-up stuff." He pulled back slightly, looking up at me with those big, innocent eyes. "Is it about Mom?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I hesitated, not wanting to burden him with too much, but I couldn't lie to him either. "Yeah, it is, but it's going to be okay, Noah, I promise." He didn't say anything, just hugged me again. We stood there for a while, the two of us, just holding on to each other. I wished I could make everything better for him, for both of them, but I didn't know how to fix this. All I knew was that I had to be strong for them, no matter how hard it got. The next day, Lisa moved out. It was a quiet, tense morning. She packed her things while the boys were still at school, trying to keep the tears at bay as she loaded her suitcases into the back of her car. She had rented a small apartment across town and would be staying there until we figured out what was going to happen next. "You can see the boys any time," I told her as she stood by the car, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I'm not going to keep them from you, Lisa, but we need space right now." She nodded, her eyes red from crying. "I know. I'll give you space. Just don't shut me out completely, Alex. Please." I didn't answer, just watched as she climbed into her car and drove away. Part of me wanted to feel relieved, but all I felt was numb. For the next few days, I focused on the boys. I made sure they were okay, that they understood this wasn't their fault, that both their mom and dad still loved them. It was hard, but I tried to make things as normal as possible for them. Carly had reached out a couple of times, asking how we were doing, and I appreciated that more than I could say. But I didn't feel ready to see her again. Not yet. I needed to figure out where my life was going before I could even think about anything else. Then on Saturday, Lisa called. She sounded different, calmer, more composed. "Can I come by and see the boys today?" she asked. "I miss them." I hesitated for a moment, then agreed. "Yeah, of course, you can come by around noon." When she arrived, the boys were ecstatic to see her, and for a brief moment things felt almost normal. They ran to her, hugging her tightly, and she knelt down to kiss them. tears in her eyes again. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness as I watched them. No matter what happened between us, she would always be their mother. While they played together in the living room, Lisa and I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee in silence. It was awkward, but I knew we had to talk. About the kids, about the future, about everything. "I've been thinking a lot," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "And I just want you to know, I'm really sorry, Alex. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm going to do whatever it takes to be a good mother to our boys, even if we can't fix us." I looked at her, seeing the regret in her eyes. I believed she was sorry, but that didn't change the fact that she had broken something between us. Something that might never be whole again. "I know," I said, my voice softer than I expected. I need time, Lisa. We both do." She nodded, understanding. "I'll wait, Alex, however long it takes. I'll wait." Later that night, after Lisa had left, I sat alone on the couch, staring at the TV without really watching it. My mind was racing, but I couldn't seem to focus on anything for more than a few seconds. And then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Carly. "Hey, Alex, just checking in. I hope you're doing okay." I stared at the message for a moment, a wave of emotions crashing over me. Maybe I wasn't ready to dive into anything new, but I couldn't deny that seeing her name made me feel lighter. I typed out a reply before I could overthink it. "Hey, Carly, thanks. I'm hanging in there. Do you want to grab coffee sometime? I could use a friend right now." Her response came almost immediately. "I'd love that." And just like that, I felt a small spark of hope, like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. The coffee with Carly was exactly what I needed. We met at a small, quiet cafe, a place she suggested, and it was perfect, calm, out of the way, and just right for two people who needed to talk. I was nervous at first, not sure what to expect, but the moment I saw her, all of that melted away. Carly smiled as I walked in, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could actually breathe. She was wearing a simple blue blouse and jeans, her curly hair framing her face in that effortless way she always seemed to pull off. She waved me over, and I smiled back, walking to the table. "Hey," I said, sitting down across from her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," she replied, her warm brown eyes meeting mine. "How are you holding up?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's been rough, to be honest. The boys are doing okay, but everything else is just a mess." Carly nodded, her expression understanding. "I can imagine. It must be really hard to juggle everything." We talked for a while about the boys, about how they were coping, and about the logistical stuff that comes with a separation. Carly listened without interrupting, letting me get everything off my chest. She didn't offer any advice, didn't try to fix things. She just listened, and that was exactly what I needed. After a while, the conversation shifted. "So, how about you?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "You've been so great checking in on me, but I feel like I haven't asked how you're doing." She smiled a little shyly. "I'm good. Busy with work as always. The kids at school are keeping me on my toes." I chuckled. "Yeah, I bet they are. My boys can't stop talking about you. They think you're the best teacher they've ever had." She blushed, looking down at her cup. "They're great kids, Alex. You've done an amazing job with them." Her words hit me harder than I expected, and I felt a lump form in my throat. I hadn't been feeling like a great dad lately with everything going on. But hearing that from Carly, it meant something. "Thanks," I said quietly. "That really means a lot." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. Then Carly looked up at me, her expression more serious. "Alex, can I ask you something?" she began, hesitating slightly. "Yeah, of course," I replied, curious. "What do you want moving forward? I mean, with everything happening, what are you hoping for?" The question caught me off guard, and I wasn't sure how to answer. What did I want? I had been so focused on just getting through each day that I hadn't really thought about the future. Honestly, I don't know, I admitted. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to be there for the boys and keep my life from falling apart. As for the rest, I guess I'm still figuring that out. Carly nodded, understanding in her eyes. That makes sense. You've been through a lot, and it's okay to take your time. I appreciated how patient she was, how she didn't push me for more than I was ready to give. But there was something about her that made me feel like maybe I could start thinking about what came next. What about you? I asked, turning the question back on her. What do you want? She smiled softly, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. I want to be happy, she said simply. And I think that means being with people who make me feel good. I don't need a lot of drama in my life, just something real, something that feels right. Her words hung in the air between us, and for a moment I wondered if she was talking about more than just her own life. Was she talking about us? Did she see something between us that I hadn't fully admitted to yet? We finished our coffee and stood to leave, and as we walked out of the cafe, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Being around Carly felt easy, natural. She didn't expect anything from me, but she was there when I needed her. And right now, that was enough. Outside, we stood by my car, neither of us really wanting to say goodbye just yet. Thanks again for meeting me, I said, my hands shoved in my pockets. I really needed this. Anytime, Carly replied with a smile. Seriously, if you ever need to talk or just hang out, I'm here. There was a pause, and for a moment, we just stood there, the air between us charged with something unspoken. I wasn't sure if I should hug her or just say goodbye, or if I was reading too much into everything. But before I could make a decision, Carly stepped forward and hugged me, her arms wrapping around me in a way that felt both comforting and something more. Take care of yourself, Alex, she whispered as she pulled back, her eyes meeting mine for a brief, intense moment. I nodded, my heart beating a little faster than before. You too, Carly. The days passed slowly after that. Lisa was doing her best to be present for the boys, and I was focusing on keeping everything as normal as possible for them. We had worked out a schedule for co-parenting, and while it was awkward at first, we were making it work. But Carly was never far from my mind. We texted every now and then, and while I didn't want to rush anything, I couldn't deny that I looked forward to hearing from her. She had become a bright spot in what had been a dark time, and I found myself wanting to see her again. Then one Friday evening, she texted me out of the blue. Hey, are you free tomorrow? I have 2 tickets to a concert, and I'd love for you to join me. A concert. It was such a normal, casual thing, but it felt like a big step. Was this a date? Or was she just offering me an escape from my current reality for a few hours? I didn't overthink it. I needed this. I needed her. I'd love to, I replied. The concert was amazing. Carly and I danced, laughed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I forgot about everything that had been weighing me down. Being with her was easy, no pressure, no expectations, just fun. Afterward, we walked around the city, stopping for ice cream and talking about everything and nothing. She told me more about her life, her past relationships, her dreams for the future, and I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't with anyone else since Lisa. By the time we made it back to her car, it was late and the city was quiet. We stood there for a moment, neither of us wanting the night to end. I had a great time tonight, I said, feeling a little awkward, but meaning every word. Me too, Carly replied, her smile soft and genuine. There was a pause, and I realized I didn't want to wait any longer. I leaned in, slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull back if she wanted to. But she didn't. Our lips met, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something real. Something right. When we finally pulled away, Carly smiled up at me, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. I think we're going to be okay, she whispered. I smiled back, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Yeah, I said softly, I think so too. The days after the concert felt lighter, almost as if a weight had been lifted off my chest. Carly and I continued to see each other, slowly and without pressure. We weren't rushing anything, just enjoying each other's company and letting things unfold naturally. The boys had noticed a change in me too. I was happier, more present, and they seemed to thrive off of it. Sophie had been keeping her distance, which helped. She still came to see the boys on the weekends, but the tension between us had eased somewhat. We had talked about how we would move forward with co-parenting, and she finally agreed to the divorce terms I had set out. It was painful, but I was ready to start over, and surprisingly, so was she. One Friday evening, Carly texted me, asking if I wanted to join her for dinner. I didn't hesitate to say yes. We had been growing closer, and part of me wanted to see where this could go. She picked a small, cozy restaurant downtown, a place with dim lighting and intimate booths. It wasn't overly fancy, but it had a charm that felt like Carly, effortless and warm. When I walked in, she was already seated at a table near the window, wearing a simple black dress that made her look both elegant and relaxed. Her hair was loose and wild, those soft curls framing her face perfectly. As soon as she saw me, her smile lit up the room, and I felt my heart skip a beat. "Hey, you," I greeted her as I sat down across from her. "Hey," she replied, her eyes twinkling. "I'm so glad you could make it." The conversation flowed easily, as it always did with Carly. We talked about our week, the boys, and plans for the future, both immediate and long-term. But there was something different about this evening, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I realized I wasn't just enjoying Carly's company. I was starting to feel something deeper for her. At one point during dinner, I found myself staring at her, mesmerized by how comfortable and natural this all felt. She noticed and tilted her head, a curious smile playing on her lips. "What?" she asked playfully. I shrugged, feeling a bit self-conscious. "I don't know, I was just thinking how lucky I am to have you in my life." Her smile softened, and she reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "I'm the lucky one, Alex," she said quietly. "You've been through so much, and yet you still find a way to be kind, to be open. That's rare." We sat there for a moment, just holding hands, the world around us fading into the background. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. Maybe this was what I had been searching for all along, not just a way to move past the hurt, but someone who could help me build something new. After dinner, we walked through the park, the evening air cool and refreshing. Carly slipped her arm through mine as we strolled, and I couldn't help but feel like this was exactly where I was supposed to be. "Can I ask you something?" I said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "Of course," she replied, looking up at me. "Do you ever think about the future? Like us?" I asked, my voice a little tentative. Carly smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the streetlights. "Yeah, I do. More than I probably should." I chuckled softly. "Me too." We stopped walking, and Carly turned to face me, her expression serious but full of warmth. "Alex, I know you're still healing, and I don't want to rush anything, but I do see a future with you. I'm not saying we need to figure it all out right now, but I'm in this. For real. I care about you and I care about the boys, and I'm willing to take this one step at a time, whatever that looks like for you." Her words hit me like a wave of warmth. I had been so afraid to trust again, to let someone in, but Carly had proven time and time again that she was patient, kind, and willing to stand by me, no matter what. "I feel the same way," I admitted. "I didn't think I'd be ready for this, not after everything. But you've made me believe that maybe I can have something good again." Carly smiled, and in that moment I realized how deeply I had come to care for her. It wasn't just about getting past the hurt anymore. It was about finding something real, something that made me want to be better, to be more. I leaned down and kissed her, softly at first, then with more intensity as she responded, her arms wrapping around my neck. It was the kind of kiss that promised something more, something lasting. When we finally pulled apart, Carly rested her forehead against mine, her breath warm against my skin. "Let's take this slow," she whispered, "but let's make it count." I smiled, my heart full for the first time in what felt like forever. "Yeah," I agreed softly. "Let's make it count." Over the next few months, Carly and I continued to grow closer. We spent time with the boys, taking them on outings and making memories that felt like the start of something beautiful. She had become an integral part of their lives, and it was clear that they adored her just as much as I did. Sophie and I finalized the divorce, and while it wasn't easy, we managed to keep things amicable for the boys' sake. She had accepted that our marriage was over, and though there were moments of sadness, we both knew it was the right decision. Carly was my rock through it all. She stood by me, supported me, and never once made me feel rushed or pressured. We were building something steady, something real, and every day I felt more grateful to have her in my life. One evening, after putting the boys to bed, Carly and I sat on the back porch, sipping wine and watching the stars. The night was quiet, peaceful, and as I looked over at her, I realized that I didn't just care about Carly. I was falling in love with her. "You know," I said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I don't think I've told you this yet, but I love you, Carly." She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise and warmth. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and I wondered if maybe I had spoken too soon. But then a smile spread across her face, and she leaned over, kissing me softly. "I love you too, Alex," she whispered against my lips. And just like that, everything felt right in the world.
Thanks for hanging out with me on today's episode, brother. I'm Jack, host of this podcast, and it's great having you here. If today's story hit home, send it on to a buddy who might need it. Remember, we're all in this together, turning life's curvy balls into wins. If you have an opinion or story to share, then drop a line in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. Until next time, keep your chin up and keep pushing forward. Stay strong, folks.